In the endless void beyond the stars, silence reigned. A silence so deep it threatened to suffocate every spark of hope left in the galaxy. The war had lasted longer than any could remember. Entire civilizations had crumbled beneath the iron fist of the Voidborn, an ancient, merciless alien force that harvested worlds, as if they were mere data points on a cosmic ledger. Planets once vibrant with life were now nothing but drifting husks, their skies blackened by the shadows of a dying civilization. At the heart of the galactic chaos lay Earth, humanity's cradle, now battered but unbroken. The United Earth Coalition, a fragile alliance forged out of desperation, was the last beacon of resistance. And yet, on this cold, fractured morning, hope felt like a fading ember barely clinging to life. Admiral Mira Kessler stood on the bridge of the Aurora, the flagship of the Coalition fleet. Her sharp eyes scanned the starfield through the wide viewport, where distant explosions flickered like dying fireflies. The Voidborn fleet was vast, an impenetrable wave of dark ships, each more monstrous than the last, sweeping across the systems humanity had claimed as home. "Status report," Mira demanded, her voice calm but edged with steel. "Shield integrity holding at 70%, Admiral," replied Lieutenant Rian Voss, his fingers dancing across the hollow console. "Enemy forces are concentrating near the Omega-7 corridor. We're outnumbered 10 to 1. 10 to 1. The odds were brutal. And yet, retreat was not an option. Myra's mind flashed back to the last message from Earth's High Command, an encrypted transmission delivered just hours ago. Prepare for total evacuation. Last chance for survival lies in Project Lumina. Project Lumina, the galaxy's best-kept secret, and humanity's final gamble. "Initiate Lumina protocols," Mira ordered. "We carry the last hope of humanity, and we will not let it fall." The crew sprang into action, the ship humming with an urgent energy. Somewhere deep in the Aurora's core, a small pod held the key, a prototype quantum AI designed to turn the tide of the war, codenamed Lumina. This AI wasn't just a machine, it was humanity's brightest mind, distilled into light and data, capable of outthinking the Voidborn's cold logic. Suddenly, the alarm screamed, a brutal reminder of their peril. Voidborn dreadnoughts appeared on all sides, their massive shadows blotting out stars. The enemy commander's voice crackled over the comms, a cruel monotone that sent chills through the crew. "Surrender your ship, humans. Your extinction is inevitable. Resistance is futile." Mira gritted her teeth. "We don't surrender. We fight until the last star fades." As the first salvo of plasma bolts slammed into the Aurora shields, the ship shuddered violently. The lights flickered, but Lumina's pod glowed softly, a beacon of brilliance in the darkness. Deep inside the ship's core, the AI awoke. "I am Lumina," it spoke, voice calm but resolute. "Calculating probabilities of survival. Less than 1%. However, alternative strategies exist. Initiating contingency protocols." Mira knew this moment was the fulcrum on which all their fate balanced. The galaxy's last light might flicker out forever unless Lumina could find a way through the darkness. "Admiral," came Rian's voice strained, "the Voidborn fleet is breaking through our outer defenses. We need to jump now." "No," Mira cut in. "We hold. For Lumina." The ship lurched as more blasts hit, and for a moment, the bridge was bathed in chaos. Sparks flying, systems failing. But through it all, Myra's resolve hardened. Humanity's survival wasn't about odds. It was about fighting when all hope was lost. Outside the viewport, the battle raged, but within the Aurora, a new light was awakening, one born not from weapons or ships, but from something far greater, the indomitable spirit of humanity. The Voidborn might have the numbers, the weapons, the cold strategy. But humanity had something they couldn't understand, something they could never conquer. The Aurora surged forward into the storm of destruction, carrying the galaxy's last chance to shine. The Aurora's hull groaned under relentless assault as Voidborn plasma streaked across its surface like deadly comets. Every system warning screamed at the crew, but none dared falter. Admiral Mira Kessler's eyes burned with fierce determination as she gripped the command console. Damage report, she demanded. Shields failing in sectors 4 and 6, Lieutenant Rian Voss answered, sweat beading on his brow. Power rerouting to weapons and engines. Hull integrity at 53% and dropping. Myra's jaw clenched. They were bleeding fast, but Lumina was awake. Somewhere in the bowels of the ship, the quantum AI churned through data, searching for the one chance humanity still had. Lumina, Mira spoke into the comm, voice barely steady. What do you have for us? A calm, modulated voice responded, dissonant against the chaos. Calculating multiple tactical options. Probability of success minimal under current engagement. However, a novel approach exists. Subspace resonance disruption. It exploits void-borne communication channels to create systemic confusion. Rian's eyes widened. You mean a direct attack on their neural network? That's untested tech, and we don't even know if their systems can be hacked. Agreed, Lumina responded. Risk high. But given our current trajectory, risk is necessary. Mira hesitated, feeling the weight of 1,000,000 lives on her shoulders. Then, with a grim nod, she said, prepare the resonance emitters. We'll strike at their minds, not their ships. The crew worked frantically, channeling every ounce of power into the resonance array hidden within the Aurora's core. Outside, the Voidborn fleet closed in, their monstrous forms blotting out the distant stars, relentless and inevitable. Suddenly, the Voidborn flagship, a black spire of jagged metal known as the Oblivion, locked targeting systems on the Aurora. Its dread engines hummed a deep, ominous pulse. Admiral Rian warned, they're locking in a concentrated plasma barrage. If it hits, we'll be torn apart. Mira stared at the growing targeting reticle, calculating. Now, Lumina. Initiate. The Aurora's engines roared as the resonance emitters powered up, sending out waves of subspace distortion, invisible yet devastating. A pulse rippled through the void, striking the Voidborn fleet's neural network, their hive mind, like an earthquake. For a moment, nothing happened. Then chaos. The Voidborn ships wavered, their movements jerky and confused. Communications between vessels flickered, static replacing orders. A ripple of disarray spread through their ranks. Status. Mira barked. Rian's fingers flew across his console. They're losing coordination. The resonance pulse scrambled their neural links. It's working. But the victory was fragile. The Oblivion recalibrated quickly, retaliating with a barrage of plasma, so intense it ripped through the Aurora's weakened shields. The ship lurched violently, alarms blaring, systems failing one after another. Brace for impact. Mira shouted. The Aurora screamed through the void, battered but alive. And inside its core, Lumina continued its relentless calculations, searching for the next move. Mira glanced at her crew, faces pale but resolute. We've bought ourselves time, she said. But this war isn't over. Not by a long shot. Outside, the stars burned cold. The galaxy's fate rested on a fragile thread, woven by the courage of those who refused to yield. And humanity's light was far from extinguished. The Aurora drifted like a wounded beast in the cold emptiness, its hull scarred and smoking from the Voidborn's relentless assault. Systems flickered, and the once proud warship now looked fragile, barely holding together. In the dim glow of the command deck, Admiral Mira Kessler stood motionless, staring at the flickering battle map. The Voidborn fleet was regrouping, their neural network adapting faster than Lumina had anticipated. The enemy was learning, evolving, and the window of opportunity was closing rapidly. Admiral Rian Voss's voice was tense. Lumina's estimates have changed. They're stabilizing their hive mind. The resonance disruption will only buy us minutes now, maybe seconds. Myra's lips pressed into a hard line. Minutes or seconds, it didn't matter. Every second was precious. Can we strike at their command core, she asked. Hit the Oblivion directly? If we disable their flagship, the fleet might collapse. Lumina's voice filled the room, calm as ever. Logical objective. However, the Oblivion is heavily shielded with adaptive energy barriers. Conventional weapons will not penetrate. Then we use what we have, Mira said firmly. Prepare the quantum torpedoes. It's our only chance. A murmur of unease spread across the bridge. Quantum torpedoes were experimental, dangerous, unstable, and the Aurora could only carry a handful. We launch at the Oblivion, Mira ordered. This ends tonight, one way or another. As the crew prepared the torpedoes, a message crackled over the comms, urgent and unexpected. This is Captain Jalen Rivas of the Sentinel, the voice said, strained but alive. We've reached the edge of the Helios Rift. Reinforcements have arrived. The Andari fleet is here. A flicker of disbelief passed through the bridge. The Andari were a reclusive race, often indifferent to galactic conflicts. Their arrival was unexpected and, potentially, a game-changer. Patch them through, Mira commanded. Captain Rivas's face appeared on the holo display, wearied but resolute. We can't hold the line alone, Rivas said bluntly. Our ships are crippled, and the Voidborn are adapting. But together, maybe, just maybe, we can turn the tide. Mira nodded, heart pounding with renewed hope. We'll synchronize attacks, quantum torpedoes on the Oblivion, and coordinated assault from the fleet. But even as they prepared, the Aurora shuddered violently. A massive impact struck near the aft section, knocking out life support in several compartments. Hull breach in engineering, a crew member called out, voice tight with panic. Mira clenched her fists. The cost of resistance was high. Too high. Suddenly, Lumina's voice cut through the tension. Admiral, I have detected a Voidborn boarding pod attached to the ship's ventral hull. They are attempting infiltration. Myra's breath caught. Seal all internal bulkheads. Deploy security teams to intercept. Within minutes, alarms blared as Voidborn operatives flooded the corridors, silent, deadly, and terrifyingly efficient. Mira grabbed a pulse rifle from a nearby rack, joining her crew in the desperate defense of their last sanctuary. The corridors became a battleground of shadows and fire. Every step forward was paved with blood. The Voidborn moved with cold precision, but humanity fought with a ferocity born of desperation and love for their home. Amid the chaos, Myra's mind raced. They were outnumbered and outgunned, but not outwilled. We hold the Aurora, she barked, firing at a charging enemy. For Earth. For every world they've stolen. And deep inside the ship, Lumina's core pulsed brighter, its quantum circuits weaving through the chaos, hunting for a solution that could save them all. But the question lingered in the shadows. How much more could humanity endure before the last light was finally snuffed out? The Aurora was a fortress under siege, its once orderly corridors now twisted into chaotic war zones. The sounds of pulse rifles and suppressed explosions echoed through the ship's metal veins as Admiral Mira Kessler moved swiftly, coordinating defense squads to repel the Voidborn boarding parties. The enemy operatives were relentless, swift, nearly invisible, and utterly merciless. Every encounter was a brutal dance between survival and sacrifice. Around her, brave crew members fell, their faces etched with pain, but eyes burning with defiance. Admiral. Lieutenant Reinvast burst into the command room, breathless. The Oblivion is mobilizing a new fleet formation. They're preparing a full assault. This is it. Myra's gaze didn't waver. How long until their attack reaches full force? Less than 10 minutes, Rian replied, dread creeping into his voice. A silence fell over the bridge. 10 minutes. Not enough time to prepare. Not enough time to run. Lumina's voice broke through the tension, calm but urgent. Admiral, my internal systems indicate a critical vulnerability in the Voidborn neural network. One they have desperately tried to shield. If exploited, it could disable their command link for minutes. Myra's eyes flicked toward the glowing AI core, a lifeline amid the storm. What do you need? Access to the Aurora's quantum mainframe and authorization to override manual controls, Lumina said. This will allow me to generate an EMP pulse that can disrupt their entire fleet's coordination. Rian's face tightened. Such an EMP will also disable our own systems temporarily. Mira didn't hesitate. It's a risk we have to take. Permission granted, she said firmly. As Lumina interfaced with the ship's core, the crew braced themselves. Lights flickered, control consoles dimmed. The Aurora groaned under the strain. Suddenly, the ship's systems plunged into darkness, a blackout that stretched for what felt like an eternity. Then, a brilliant pulse exploded through subspace, a wave of electromagnetic energy rippling across the battlefield. Outside, the Voidborn fleet staggered, their sleek ships losing synchronization, some drifting aimlessly. EMP successful, Lumina confirmed. Fleet coordination disrupted. They are vulnerable. But the victory was razor-thin. In the dim glow of emergency lights, Myra's comm crackled. "This is Captain Jalen Rivas aboard the Sentinel." The message came through strained. "We're under heavy fire. Voidborn boarding parties breached our hull. We need immediate assistance." Myra's heart clenched. They were not alone in this fight, but their allies were crumbling. "Hold your position, Captain." "We're coming," Myra promised. Turning back to the bridge, she made a decision that could decide the war. "Rian," she said, voice steady despite the chaos, "we're taking the fight to the oblivion. Prepare boarding pods." We strike at their heart. The crew exchanged stunned glances. Myra met their eyes. "This is our chance." The last light doesn't just survive, it fights back. As the Aurora readied for the daring assault, the Voidborn began to recover from the EMP, their wrath intensifying. The galaxy's fate balanced on a knife's edge. And in the depths of the Aurora, amidst the echoes of battle, a single truth blazed brighter than any star. When all hope was lost, humanity refused to be extinguished. The Aurora's boarding pods detached with a silent hiss, gliding through the void like desperate arrows aimed at the heart of the oblivion. Inside each pod, soldiers gripped their weapons tightly, faces hardened by exhaustion and determination. Admiral Mira Kessler stood at the forefront of the assault team, her pulse steady despite the pounding chaos around her. The Voidborn flagship loomed before them, a towering fortress of jagged obsidian metal that swallowed the light of distant stars. "This is it," Mira whispered to herself. "One chance to break the chain." The pods docked with a metallic clang, and the boarding teams flooded into the Oblivion's corridors. The atmosphere inside was cold, sterile, and suffused with a faint hum, an ominous sign that the Voidborn's neural core was near. The air crackled with tension as they advanced, every shadow a potential threat. The Voidborn defenders appeared, in human shapes, fluid and swift, striking with unnatural precision. Myra's squad fought tooth and nail, inching closer to the command core. Each step was paid with sacrifice. A squad mate fallen here, a friend lost there. But the fire in their hearts pushed them onward. Suddenly, the corridor opened into a vast chamber, the neural nexus of the Voidborn hive mind. Pulsing tendrils of energy stretched across the room, connecting to a massive central core that glowed with eerie, sentient light. Lumina's voice echoed in Myra's comm. "This is the command node. Disabling it will sever the Voidborn fleet's collective control." Mira glanced at the core, then at her dwindling squad. "We need explosives, fast." A technician deployed a compact quantum charge onto the core's outer shell. The countdown began. 10 seconds, the technician warned. Myra's breath hitched. Suddenly, the chamber trembled. Voidborn reinforcements poured in, their howls like mechanical beasts fueled by rage. "Hold the line," Mira shouted, raising her rifle. The firefight was brutal, each second stretching into eternity. The quantum charge blinked down. 5 seconds. A massive Voidborn warrior lunged at Mira, claws extended. She fired burst, dropping it mid-leap. 2 seconds. The charge detonated in a blinding flash. The neural nexus convulsed violently, then imploded into a cascade of sparks and smoke. "Command node offline," Lumina confirmed, voice steady despite the chaos. Outside, the Voidborn fleet faltered, ships stalled, weapon systems flickering erratically. The tide had turned, but victory came at a terrible price. The blast sent a shockwave through the oblivion, triggering structural failures. Myra's squad raced back to the pods, fighting collapsing corridors and failing life support. As they reached the pods, Mira looked back once more at the dying core. The Voidborn might be broken, But the war was far from over. "Return to the Aurora," she ordered. "We're not done yet." The escape pods rocketed away from the collapsing oblivion, the void around them trembling with the shock waves of destruction. Myra's squad sat in tense silence, every second heavy with uncertainty. Behind them, the flagship, the dark heart of the void-born empire, was falling apart. But the war was not yet won. As the pods linked back to the Aurora, alarms blared across the battered ship. The void-born fleet was in disarray, but not defeated. Smaller, hidden fleets began to close in, sensing their moment to crush humanity's last stand. Myra's voice was resolute as she addressed the crew. "We've struck a devastating blow, but the Voidborn will retaliate fiercely. Prepare for the final battle. We fight not just for survival, but for the future of every star in this galaxy." Lumina's voice cut in, calm and sharp. "Admiral, I have analyzed enemy patterns. A calculated counterstrike could cripple their remaining forces if we synchronize with the Andari fleet and act swiftly." On the bridge, the holomap flickered as Admiral Rivas's fleet emerged from a Helios rift, their sleek ships cutting through the void with deadly precision. "Coordinate our strike," Mira commanded. "This ends now." The combined fleet surged forward like a wave of light, piercing the void-born shadows. Laser fire rained, missiles streaked, and war cries filled the void. The battle was brutal, more savage than any before. Ships exploded in blazing infernos. Entire fleets vanished in flashes of light. But humanity and its allies fought with a ferocity born from desperation and hope. In the chaos, Mira found a moment to look out at the stars, the same stars that had once seemed so distant, so cold. Now, they shone with the promise of survival. As the Voidborn command shattered and their fleet scattered, the darkness that had gripped the galaxy began to recede. The Aurora and its battered fleet emerged victorious, but not without cost. Casualties were high, ships were lost, lives extinguished like fragile flames. Yet amidst the ruins, humanity had become the galaxy's last light. Mira lowered her gaze from the stars, a faint smile breaking through exhaustion. "We did it," she whispered. "We fought when all hope was lost." Lumina's voice, warm and steady, replied, "And so the light endures. Humanity will shine, for now and for all the tomorrows to come." In that moment, the galaxy understood something ancient and powerful. Hope was not a gift bestowed. It was a fire kindled by those brave enough to keep fighting in the darkest hour. And humanity, against all odds, had become the galaxy's last light.